Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth season of Let's Talk Elephants. I'm your host, Destiny Farley, and today I will be interviewing Cynthia Catanzaro, who is a medium and spiritual reader. Cynthia realized from a young age that she was deeply connected to what she refers to as spirit, and since then she's really tried to fine-tune her gift and has even started her own business where she offers readings to people to help them connect with past loved ones. I have actually had a reading from her where I genuinely believe that she connected me with my grandpa, and I'll most likely share some details about that later on in the episode. Cynthia is also a hairdresser, and she has helped many of her clients connect with loved ones in that setting as well. She's explained to me that sometimes readings will just come through to her while she is sharing the space with her clients, and I'm really excited to dive deeper into this topic. This seems to be an issue where you either wholeheartedly believe it is possible to connect with past loved ones, or you wholeheartedly believe it is not possible in this way. So hopefully this will be an insightful conversation no matter where you fall on that spectrum. Before diving into any specific questions, Cynthia, can you just take a moment to briefly introduce yourself and share with everyone how you came to know that you had this ability?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. My name is Cynthia. I'm 28 years old, and I was born in Las Vegas. I've lived here pretty much my whole entire life. Um, I have always known I had the ability to connect with spirit, but for a very long time, I would say the majority of my life, I didn't really understand it. I grew up like very confused by it because I feel like some of my family members kind of made me feel like it was like weird or wrong. And then like the other half of my family members made me feel very comfortable to share with them. So I kind of didn't really share with anybody some of the experiences that I was having. But now as an adult, I look back, like now that I understand it better, I kind of look back and I'm like, oh, like that was spirit trying to connect with me, but I didn't understand how to do that at like a very young age. Um, so I feel like I've kind of always known that I had something like some sort of connection to the other side. Like, it all really started once my grandmother passed away, and I would have dreams about her like very often, and they would feel so real that I felt like I was really like connecting with her and talking to her. And in all of the dreams, it was like I was the only one that could see her, and I was like trying to get everyone to like notice her, like, oh my gosh, like she's here, like look, like I can see her. And like it would just be her and I like talking and connecting. um so I have always known that I've had this ability. I just didn't really understand it until I got into like my like mid 20s, I would say.
Okay. And you said that some family members and friends were receptive and others were skeptical. What did
Yeah.
that look like?
Um, I feel like my mom and dad have very opposite views on like spirituality and like religion. So my mom growing up, she was extremely spiritual. And it was always like, oh, like angels are watching over you and like, oh, it's a sign from so and so. But my dad was more so like, nah, like get out of here. Like that doesn't, kind of like I think he just didn't really understand her perspective. Um so I think some of my siblings grew up feeling that same way, like just unsure because I don't think they had as many experiences as like I was personally having. But I was like so sensitive to it that I think it kind of just came off as like I think they just didn't know. I don't think they knew how it was, how I felt experiencing those things.
How many siblings do you have?
I'm one of 8 kids.
Oh my God, there's eight?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
didn't know there was eight.
Yeah.
And
I'm one
you're
of
the
eight.
only one that feels like you're psychic, right? Like there's no other people within your
Well,
siblings that.
I feel like all of my siblings are like I feel like they're super intuitive and like
Mm-hmm.
psychic. My sisters are a lot more open to it. Like my mom and my three sisters are very psychic, very intuitive, very open to like that whole realm. Um but growing up, it was kind of like I felt very alone because I would even have like other adults tell me like, "Oh, like you're psychic," or like, like you're very intuitive, or my mom would always tell me. I always felt really comfortable to share with my mom. But, in the past, like, 5 years, I would say, I've actually bonded a lot with my mom and sisters over my abilities, and they've kind of grown into their own abilities because of, just being more comfortable to talk about it. Like, it kind of became something that wasn't so, like, looked down upon anymore. It was kind of like embraced. Normal. Yeah, once I kind of stepped into it.
Has having conversations with people that doubt you ever made you doubt yourself? Or, like, has there been moments in time where you're like, maybe this isn't real, or maybe this is something else?
I wouldn't say that it has ever made me doubt my ability in itself, or doubt what I'm experiencing or what I know to be what I feel to be true. But I will say, like, during certain readings or, certain conversations with people, I have in the past been made to feel like I wasn't believed, or like I wasn't, like, it's hard to find the words for it, but like, kind of like what I believe to be so true for myself, and my experiences are very real for me. I feel like some people just have made me feel like it's not. So it was kind of a hard balance to let go of that and understand that it's nothing personal to me personally. Like, it's not them trying to make me feel like I'm lying, or that it's not real, or, whatever the case may be. I think that you just have to have your own personal experience with it.
Right.
So I kind of had to learn that very quickly. Like, I had to take my ego out of it, because I could have very easily, gotten dragged down with that. But I think it also helped growing up with, like, 4 brothers that were very, like, didn't understand me at all when I was younger, like, being very sensitive, and, like, if I would share an experience, it would be like, it wasn't really embraced or encouraged. It was kind of more like hushed down a little bit. So I think I kind of figured that out at an early age, that, like, not everybody is going to stand by you, but that's completely okay, because it's not their journey, it's mine.
Right. Growing up with brothers gives you very thick skin.
Yes,
I am the only girl. I'm the oldest, and I have 2 younger brothers, so it was a rough life.
Yeah,
I'm the
youngest girl. So
okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So when you're giving these readings, what does it feel like when you're having messages come through, or how can you tell that someone is trying to come through to you? Is it like a physical thing, a mental thing, emotional thing, like tingling? Like, what does that feel like?
I always tell people, like, it's not how the movies make it out to be, where it's like some big like dramatic production, like, like the lights turn off and, I get all these crazy feelings. It's actually quite subtle. Like, my whole life, I honestly mistook my, like, when I was receiving a message or a feeling or something, for like a daydream almost, because it almost feels like my own thoughts. So until I was able to realize that, like, this, like, know the difference between my own thoughts and feelings versus spirit coming through to me, because you have to think, like, they don't have a physical body anymore. They don't have a physical voice anymore. They can't just come up to you and be like, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm here to tell the person that you're with that, I miss them and love them, and, give them this message. It's kind of like little puzzle pieces. So, like, it kind of comes in all different ways. It also depends on how that specific spirit communicates, because sometimes I'll just get, like, a feeling of a presence, and I'll have to kind of decipher, okay, like, this must be for the person that I'm with right now. Or sometimes I'll get, like, an image, like, it could be like something, like, totally random. Like, one time I was doing a woman's hair, and, like, the entire time I was doing her hair, I was seeing a pair of, like, baby shoes. And I was like, why am I thinking about baby shoes? Like, this is weird. Like, why? Like, this makes no sense to me. Like, this has to be something connected to her. So sometimes it can be like that, like an image, a feeling. It could be like, I'll hear a word in my head, but, like, in my own voice. Like, it's not that I'm hearing voices in my head. It'll be like my own thought. Like, if you say to yourself, ice cream cone in your head. That's exactly how it sounds when spirit is communicating with me. So it varies from person to person, or,
Yeah.
what is trying to come through.
Can you tell me a little bit about, because when we had our reading, you told me, don't tell me anything. Don't tell me more than you need to tell me about this person or this situation, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Why do you do that? Why do you preface with that before you're giving a reading?
I preface with that because if I know something about someone going into a reading, my ego is already getting in the way because I know something. So I like to go into it not knowing anything about the person, because that just helps me stay true to what I am. What is coming through is coming from spirit and not me, not my ego. So if, spirit were to come through and say, I died at the age of 45, and you've already told me that someone died at 45, it's a little bit harder for me to feel like I'm getting it from spirit because I already knew that information. So if I go into it and you as the client know that you haven't told me anything about yourself, you're a perfect stranger, so I don't know anything about you. So this information coming through, it's more validating and evidential that it's coming from your loved one and not me, because I don't know anything about you. How would I know certain details?
Yeah.
So, I always say, like, or don't tell me anything, or people will be like, yeah, that makes sense. And then also this, and that. And I'm like, okay, just yes or no. Like, don't give me any more detail, because then it's not going to feel true that I'm getting it for you. Like, I want your loved one to tell me, not you. Like, it's not a conversation between you and I. I'm connecting with your loved one so they can validate that they're still with you. So that's why I like to know nothing. I like to...
So does it make it harder to do like second or third readings or readings with clients that you have information on because of that reason? Or how do you navigate? Like, do you feel a difference in giving a total stranger that you've never met for the first time a reading versus people that you have an established relationship with, or clients or people that come back over and over again?
Yeah. As far as people coming back, I usually recommend they only come back every 6 months to a year, just so like more life experience can happen. So I'll have information to read on you. Like, it's not necessary for someone to come get a reading like once a month. Like, it might make them feel good and it's like awesome to like hear certain stuff, but typically, like, I just trust that spirit will tell me what they need to hear. So even if it is someone who I personally know or someone who has come for readings previously, every reading is different. I've had clients who have came once a year for the past like 3 years, and all of their readings are just completely different, just depending on what they're going through in their life. Or they'll come back and say, you told me this in the first reading and then that happened, so like I want more, insight on that. Or it kind of just depends on what spirit wants to share. I kind of just leave it up to that, and I trust that.
You're just the messenger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm just the messenger.
Are there any ethical considerations or guidelines that you follow in your practice as a medium? Like, is there anything that you won't touch, or if you feel like there's, I don't know what it would look like on your end, but is there anything that you consider where you're on an ethical level when you're giving these readings?
Yeah, I always set an intention before I start, and just like in my life in general, like, I'm not here to give anybody bad news or, tell someone something negative that's not going to help them. So I feel like I don't really tap into anything that's not in the best and highest good for myself and my clients. So I've had people say like, oh, like, do you know when people are going to die, or do you know what's going to happen, like, with this or that? And like, I personally don't want to know that, or I don't want to tell someone that, because I don't think that's beneficial personally. I mean, I'm sure there are some mediums and psychics who can tap into that and they can give their clients that if they want to. But for me, my readings are just, I want them to be like lighthearted and fun, and sometimes we laugh, sometimes, they cry. So I feel like I just focus on the intention of, I'm doing this in the best and highest good for my client. So whatever it is that you need to hear, if that's what's coming through, then I'm gonna say it. But I just kind of leave it at that. I don't really tap into anything that's not, in my safety and my protection.
Right. Do you ever have stuff that comes through that you don't want to come through, or things that you'll choose to leave out intentionally for that reason?
I don't typically leave anything out, because even if something doesn't make sense to me, I trust that if I'm seeing it or feeling it, it's going to make sense to the client. But I'm so sorry. What was the second part of your question?
I don't even remember.
I'm so
This is
sorry.
what happens when you have two people that have ADD or lose attention quickly, because I'm like, do you have that's what it was. Do you have things that you intentionally leave out, like on purpose, like,
right.
or you don't feel like they need to know that, or maybe, or because maybe you decide, that's not
right,
in their
or something
good.
that I don't like, that's like what's coming through or something.
Right.
There's been like maybe a handful of times where like I've gotten like a weird feeling during a reading, but for the most part, like I don't really leave anything out unless like I feel that the client isn't going to be receptive to hearing it. And I think that like depending on like, because I'm reading their emotional state when they come in as well. Like if they are like very, I need to hear this and I need to hear that, and I need this answer, I don't want them to leave feeling worse than when they came in. So
right.
If I am receiving information that I don't feel like is going to be beneficial for them, I'll try my best to say it in a way that they'll understand more. But for the most part, like anything I see, hear, or feel, I'm going to say it. So, yeah.
So, on that note, do you always share readings any time that they come through to you? Like, if you're, I don't know, checking out at the grocery store and someone's dead uncle wants to tell her I said hi, or, like if you're doing someone's hair and something comes through, is there ever a time where you're like, no, I don't really feel like doing this today, or do you feel obligated to share it if it's coming through?
Not all the time, no. It's, for me personally, like, I don't really get that whole, like, oh, like, I'm at a grocery store and, like, I have to tell this person something. That has happened, but it's not something common for me because I set very strong boundaries with that. Because, for one, reading a stranger in public is very invasive and very, like, that's just a boundary for a lot of people. You don't know how they're going to react. I don't know their religious views. I don't know if they were on good terms with this person that is trying to come through to them. So one thing I do is I always ask permission, even if someone is like coming in for a reading. Like I always ask, like, is it okay that we're doing this? Like, I need you to be open to it. Because that can really blindside someone. And it might help them, but it also might, scare them really bad.
Right.
So I'm not trying to do that to anybody. But during like hair appointments, because I'm like kind of focused on what I'm doing and I'm like relaxed and it's kind of like forced meditation, I will often have spirits come through for people. And if the time is right and if I feel like they really need to hear what's coming through, then I will share. I'll ask permission and I'll share what I'm feeling. But there are times where I'm like, you know what? I'm doing hair right now. If they are meant to come in for a reading, then they'll book a reading. But, like, I'm sorry, spirit, but, like, I can't do two things at once right now. Or, like, now's not the time for a reading. Or, like, if I'm out at a bar, like, I'm not trying to do readings. Like, I just want to have a good time and be, like, a normal person. So I do set boundaries, but I kind of always know if it's very strong or like very persistent, I'm like, okay, this person probably like needs to hear something.
Right.
So I'll just start by saying like, do you mind if I like share a message with you? Most of my clients by now know what I do. And
Right.
if it's in public, I always just say like, hi, like I don't mean to be, like invasive, but I'm psychic and I have this feeling, like, do you mind if I ask you a question, or do you mind if I share this with you? If they say no, that's totally okay. Like it's not gonna hurt me to hear no. So it's totally up to the person that's going to be receiving the message.
Have you seen that guy on TikTok that's like the cab driver?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have feelings about that? Or?
Oh, what is that called? Seatbelt psychic.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love him. I think he's awesome. Yeah.
It reminds me of how you do readings.
Yeah.
It's similar.
Yeah.
The questions he asks. And...
Yeah. He is very, I've watched a lot of psychics like that, and I think like what he does is awesome because he always asks permission.
Right.
And it's just very straight to the point, very evidential. It's not like a cookie cutter reading of like, you know, whatever that may look like for other people, but I really, really like his work.
Style.
Yeah.
Does it ever get tiring to you? Like, does it take energy out of you to connect with other people's energies like that? Because I know, just as a normal layperson, that I get my energy drains when I'm around people in this realm. So I don't even know what that would feel like for you if you're connecting with those types of energies that are probably even stronger. I don't know.
A lot of it has to do with boundaries and like knowing how to shut down and when to shut down. Right. It can get exhausting. I notice like if I am sitting in a reading, I'll just be sitting here like you and I are talking right now, but I'll be like profusely sweating. Like I'm using energy to do what I'm doing. So it can get draining, especially if like, you know, I'm having like a very emotional client sitting in front of me, or if I'm just having a day myself. Like sometimes it's hard to like set aside my emotions and my anxiety and just be there like as a channel for someone else to come through.
Right.
But for the most part, I learned the hard way to like, okay, I'm done with the reading, like shut down, sage myself, you know, wash my hands, you know, I'm not doing a reading anymore. Like, because when I first started understanding it and like communicating, it would be like all day, every day, just like all the time. Like I couldn't help but not read someone.
Right.
Like I would get in a room with someone and be like, oh, like this person has them around them. And then, oh, this person's grandma's with them. And then, you know, oh, what is this feeling? Oh, they need to drink more green juice or something. Like just very like random things. But now I it's like a switch, like a light switch. Like I know when to turn it on. I know when to turn it off. Some things come through just randomly, whether I'm trying or not. But for the most part, to not feel like exhausted or drained, I just set really good boundaries and I just protect my energy a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have regular conversations with your own past loved ones?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny though, because I feel like you would think I would have a more clear conversation with them because of what I do.
Right.
But it's actually more clear when someone else's loved one comes through. Like, I feel like I get in my own way sometimes.
Right.
But I will say, like, it is easy for me to, like, feel my grandma around me or, like, just my past loved ones who have, you know, passed away. I do connect with them in certain ways, like certain numbers, or, like, I have certain signs designated for certain people. So I know when they're trying to communicate with me, and I always acknowledge it and, like, thank them. And, like, I ask them for guidance, like, even on the way here, I was like asking my grandma to like help the conversation flow because I was nervous. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I definitely connect with my own loved ones very much.
Yeah. Do you have any stories where, you know, you've given someone a reading and it's impacted them like profoundly or any that really stick out to you that are memorable to you? I'm sure they impact everybody.
Yeah.
Especially if they're voluntarily coming in there and already believe in this. But is there any that were particularly like, you know, I'll have episodes with guests where I'm like, that was a good episode, or I really connected with that person, or that was really authentic and really genuine, or I'll have people reach out to me about certain episodes and be like, this particular episode really helped me. Do you have any examples or like ones that stick out to you like that?
Yeah. I have a lot. I have a lot of clients who, you know, their reading was like so just like everything was spot on and it made so much sense to them, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I really helped them. One client in particular, she was actually never a reading client. She had never come to me for a reading, but she knew what I did or what I do. And I saw her in like 19, and she was 8 months pregnant at the time. And unfortunately, the next time I saw her, it was like 2021, and she had lost her baby full term, unfortunately.
Wow.
So when she came to get her hair done, it was a really big deal for her because she hadn't really like been leaving the house. She was very depressed. Of course, I can only imagine like her grieving, you know, a baby. And during her hair appointment, she had a lot of hair, so her hair took like 4 hours, and like for the entirety of the hair appointment, her baby came through for her and just gave her so many just little random details that she was still around, like how like her older brother was like drawing her pictures and hanging them in his room every night, and how, you know, just the details of how she passed and why she passed and the time, and just things that she hadn't really shared with anybody that came through, that it gave her such a comfort and so much peace around her passing. And she messaged me like later that night, and she was just like, please don't stop doing what you're doing, because you just helped me, like you gave me so much like tonight by doing that for me. So that was really profound, because I feel like I really helped someone in such a time of grief that like I can only imagine, like, you know, going through that.
Yeah. I mean,
so that's just one of, you know, many stories,
right.
But that's one that sticks out to me the most.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that probably, again, most people feel that way afterwards.
Yeah.
Even if there's people that are skeptical after having, you know, I mean, I wouldn't consider I'm skeptical in life in general, because I'm just like a logical thinker, but I'm still, I consider myself spiritual.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that I'm...
It's a funny mix, because I find myself the same. I'm skeptical myself, so I can appreciate, you know, people that are skeptical, but I'm also like very open. So it's an interesting... Right. It's like, yeah, I totally feel you. Like, I probably wouldn't believe it either. And then, but knowing like myself and my truth, it's like, you know, it's interesting.
Right. I wouldn't even say that I am one of the most skeptical people that you've done a reading for. Like, I don't know who you've done readings for, but I had my reservations going into it, and then after we were done, I was like, I don't have reservations anymore.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know? That makes me happy to hear.
Yeah. So I think that most people probably leave feeling that way.
Yeah.
I definitely felt that way too. Like, you know, don't stop doing what you're doing is probably a common theme with the people that you do readings for.
Yeah.
I know Caitlin. So I know she also felt that way.
Yeah.
What have you learned about the spirit world through this whole process? Like, I'm sure it's a lot. But has spirit relayed information to you about the afterlife and about the dying process and like our purpose for being in these bodies? Like, what are some of the most important things that you have gained from having this gift and the information that they pass to you?
Some of the most important things that I've learned is, and like, I know it's easier said than done because we're humans and we're living a human experience. So it's hard to just say like, oh, just live your life. But it really just comes down to like love and living. Like, you're here to learn lessons, and every spirit that has come through to me during a reading has at least said one thing that they learned, or that they, you know, could have done better, or they never come through with any regret, or, you know, I wish I would have, you know, been different. It's kind of like, this was my life and this is how I lived it, and I can see it clearly now. So this is my acknowledgement of how I was, and this is what I've learned. So I feel like, yeah, there's just so much to learn being here as humans, but in the spirit world, I've learned that they're really not far away at all. It's just a matter of tapping into it. But I think it's very hard to explain where they are, because I really don't know, because I'm not there. Like, I have my ideas, I have my theories of, you know, what the spirit world looks like, but I think that we are part of the spirit world. I think we come from the spirit world. I think before you're born, that's where you're at. Like, I've even connected with babies that are in their still in the womb, like developing, but like they're communicating with me. Like I can see like what they look like and what their personality is going to be like. And then those babies are born and my clients are like, "Oh my God, you were right about their birthday," or like, their personality is so spot on to how you said it was going to be, or, things like that. So we are all spirits. So when we go back to the spirit world after we pass away, I think we just go back to our original form.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you believe that we reincarnate?
I do. Yeah, I do believe that we reincarnate. I'm not sure how that actually works, though, because I feel like I've heard that, you can wait to reincarnate until like all of your family passes.
Right.
And then I've heard of people like reincarnating into like a dog to like bring their mom comfort after like their child passes away. So I think reincarnation is one of those things that it's very broad. Like there's a lot to be learned about it. I do think that we all have past lives. We've all, lived lives before this one. Some more than others. Like I think there's soul ages, like your soul can be, older or younger, or, you come from a certain realm to be here to like teach people lessons or to learn lessons for your soul to evolve. But I think that's such a broad, it's very broad. I feel like even I'm still learning about all of that.
Yeah. I've had different shifts in my faith and in what I believe in my spirituality across my life. But one thing that I've maintained consistency on is this belief that whatever it is bigger than us, and it's bigger than us for a reason.
Yeah. And
because we are just a piece of whatever that is, there's no way that we'll ever be able to fully understand or comprehend it in this form.
Yeah.
I personally believe that we reincarnate to eventually understand that in its truest
I like
form.
That.
Have you ever read the book Journey of Souls?
No.
Okay, have you heard of it?
I have heard of it.
Okay.
Farrah told me to read it, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've talked about it before on this podcast. I actually remember specifically talking about it on an episode about abortion. It came up and we were talking about past lives and death and grief and things like that. But everything that you're saying, is in that book. So it's this man that I can't remember his exact background right now, but I know that he practices deep hypnosis. And so he'll have clients come in and it's kind of like the opposite of what you do, but he'll put them in a state for their own higher self to come out and have a conversation with him so that he can ask them questions about the spirit world. So they're in like a state of, it's not even, so you have your consciousness, like you're conscious, we're conscious right now, and then you have your subconscious, which you're still like aware that it exists.
Right.
And then he calls it a super conscious, where it's basically like deeper than going subconscious, where everything is kind of shut off momentarily, so that it's just like a direct cord from this body to your soul. Wow. And he'll ask them questions about their past lives, and they'll remember bodies that they've lived in, lives that they've lived, personalities that they had. And it's really interesting. And he'll also ask them questions about like spirit world and spirit and things like that. And he said the same thing, where he'll interview people that have different soul ages. So he categorizes them by level. So he'll have them like level 1, level 2, level 3, and then when you get past level 3, it's more like guide type levels. And he says there's not a lot of those people walking around on Earth, because the more advanced you get as a soul, the less you have to reincarnate, because you're more advanced, so there's less to learn. And a lot of times like higher level souls will know that they're higher level souls. There's like an awareness of that. So it's really interesting. I'd recommend reading it, because it'll be definitely there. You can see kind of where you fall in line with what he's talking about. But one thing that has kind of pushed me, because I'm more logical, right? And it's hard for me to just believe things to believe them. I've gotten to this point in my faith or in my spirituality because I've had enough things happen separately that line up. And so that's consistency for me, So if I'm interviewing a man that had a near-death experience, which I have twice.
Right.
What he's saying lines up with what I read in that book that
Yeah.
he's never read before.
Right.
And it lines up with other people's near-death experiences that are
Yeah.
described in that book. And it lines up with what you're telling me
Mm-hmm.
as a psychic. So that's as close to me, that's as close as you're going to get
Yeah.
to proof of God.
Right.
Because if there was proof of God or proof of how it worked, whatever it is, there wouldn't be all these divisions
Right.
with religion and wars over religion and things. Like, it would just be
Yeah.
clear. It would just be known. And I guess there's a reason that it's not known,
Yeah.
right? And it's a journey we
I don't
haven't...
think we're supposed to know.
Right.
Because we're supposed to be living a human experience. If we knew all the
Right.
answers, what would be the point?
Right.
You know?
We have amnesia.
Yeah.
For a
it's
reason.
frustrating because it's like...
It's
just
hard.
tell me what I'm doing here. Like, what is this? Like, this is a made-up world that we're all, like, living in. Like,
Right.
It's crazy.
In that book, it talks about how Earth... Because this is a little bit out there. I don't know how I feel about all this. But in that book, it says that there's other types of existences. Like, it's not necessarily just human.
Right.
But here, Earth is known for being, like, a hard level, basically.
Yeah.
Like, it's known for...
It feels like it sometimes.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I mean...
Earth is a school. I believe that Earth is a school.
I do, too.
Yeah.
I believe our lives are just, like, grade levels that we're passing through, and you learn different lessons. And if you go into it with the mindset of, like, I'm trying to beat the game, you know, like, for lack of another term, or, like, evolve to the highest form in this body that I possibly can.
Yeah.
Then that's how you just become
well,
a better
when you
human.
think about it, like, as humans, like, you hear people say, I want to be the best version of myself. And in doing that, you're evolving your soul, because your soul is a part of yourself. I actually became really obsessed with, like, near-death experiences and studying them, because there's such a similarity in every single case.
Right.
Like, it's, like, crazy that, like, I was like, how do all these people experience such similar things? Like, how could it not be somewhat true? How is there not even just a little glimpse of truth to it? And I actually passed away when I was born. I was passed away for like 7 minutes. My mom I have a twin brother. So my mom was having us at home, and her water broke, and I think like my foot came out, and like my cord, or like it was just all bad. So she was rushed to the hospital, and they told her on the way to the hospital, like, baby A, which is me, has like no heartbeat. So I had no heartbeat for 7 minutes until they took me out, and then I came back to life. And my parents joke and say that, like, I was, like, pissed off for the first, like, 3 months that I was born. And, like, all my baby pictures, I'm just, like, it did not look like I wanted to be here.
Yeah.
And they, like, a lot of near-death experiences, people will say they come back with, like, psychic abilities or, like, a higher perspective on, like, their intuition, or, you know, they have a lot more experiences in, like, life. So I think that also might have something to do with why I was so intuitive and so sensitive at such a young age, because I had that experience.
Right.
Not that I remember it, but I think my soul was like, do I really want to come here? Like, do I really want to do this again? But yeah, I think that it kind of all happened that way for a reason.
Right. So does having this gift, has it changed your perspective of death? Are you less afraid of death now? Are you afraid of death at all?
I'm not afraid of death at all. I'm afraid of what my family and friends and people that love me would experience if I passed, or when I pass, you know, not for a very long time, hopefully, but I don't fear death itself. I don't fear where I'm going to go or what it's going to be like. I feel like it's just a part of a transition. I don't really like the word death either, because I feel like that feels so heavy and like
permanent.
Yeah, like it's just like gone forever. And like I feel like death, quote unquote, is like such a transition, and it's hard for us here to experience that are still living in it. But when a spirit passes away, I don't think it's as hard for them as it is for us. I think that they actually get relief from this life.
Right.
And they're so much with us that they don't miss us the way that we miss them, because they're with us all the time. They can be anywhere. They're so expansive. They're not confined to just one body. Like, they can be in more than one place at once, even.
Right.
So I don't fear death at all. I think, like, the way that you might die, it could be, like, scary, but I don't know. I don't feel fear around that at all.
Yeah. When my grandpa was passing, my family is still Catholic for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So they had our childhood priest come in and give him his last rites.
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't know, like when you're Catholic or Christian, what are they called? They're like the holy, it's been a minute. Like the holy sacraments, I think, or something like that. There's 7 of them. And one of them is last rites, and it's basically a priest comes in and blesses you because you're nonverbal and you don't have a way to repent for your sins if you're nonverbal, so they just come in and bless you to get to heaven.
Right.
But I will never, like, forget what he said when he was in there, and he was just like, he's the lucky one because we're the ones that are stuck here with the grief, and he's going home.
I just got the chills when you said that.
Yeah. And so I know that when I'm grieving him, it's harder for him than it is for me.
Yeah.
To experience the grief.
Yeah.
You know, like to know that I know my grandpa is stubborn, so I know he's probably up there like, you just have no idea. Like, it's fine up here.
Yeah.
Like, you have it worse down there. Don't worry about me, Des. Like, it's 11:11 right now. That's crazy.
That's so cool. I love it.
That's so weird. But I know that that's, like, how he is, you know? He's probably, like, looking down, or anyone who has past loved ones, they're probably looking down, and they're like, they just don't know.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of it. Like, like, I don't miss that.
Yeah.
You know? But losing my grandpa changed my perspective on death, because it also forces you to. Like, you have no choice but to think about death. Like, it's so interesting because we're one of the only creatures that we know of that has metacognition, right? So we think about our thinking, and we're self-aware. We know that we're gonna die. That's really unique to us. So some people, that's scary, and they'll push that thought off, and it'll be something that we don't like to think about, our own mortality. And then I personally believe that religion serves 2 purposes. It's to cope with our mortality and for control, and that might be controversial, but I
kind of like that, though.
Yeah. And so when you lose somebody that's close to you like that, it forces you to start to contemplate where did they go?
Where did they? Because it's almost like you have to, like, think about. It's like, where does someone go? Like, how are they just gone? It takes so long to really, like, accept it that they're, like, just not here anymore. Like, where do they go? Like, it doesn't make any sense until you, like, I don't know.
Well, and it's depressing to think that they're gone, like, that they just cease to exist.
Yeah.
And to me, actually, my personal belief is that atheists and religious people, especially uber religious people, they're almost hypocrites towards each other, because both of them are saying, I know for a fact what is out there and how it works, and the other person is saying, I know for a fact that there's nothing out there. Yeah. And it's like, we don't have evidence of either. Yeah. You know, so
I think about that all the time, like, with religion, you know, it's like there's so many different religions, and everyone who follows their own religion thinks that theirs is right because it's right for them. But the other person's is wrong, and I'm wrong and you're right, or you're right and I'm wrong. And I think it's really just about finding what you believe in, but still being open to, like, you know what, I have Christian friends who don't believe in what I do. Right. And that's totally okay with me, because I know that they're still a good person. They just don't understand it. And I don't really understand their religion as much as they, you know, practice it and understand it. But it's just kind of interesting how there's so much division around religion, because everyone thinks that they're right. And it's like, you're right for you, but it may not work for other people. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. I have a very open mind when it comes to that, because I feel like if you are following a religion that works for you and it makes you feel like you're a better person and it's helped you in times of like grief or sadness or, you know, just getting through life. I think we all just need something to get through life. And for me, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm relying on like my spirit guides, like my angels, my loved ones. Like that's how I get through life, is like knowing that I have support that I can't even see, but I can feel it. So I think it's kind of similar for all religions, but, you know, some people feel like one is wrong and one is right. Right. So that causes like division in some way.
Tale as old as time, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard for me to understand, but then in a way it's not hard for me to understand, because all you have to do to understand where religious people are coming from is like ask yourself, well, how you feel about your gift, and like, you know that this is how it works, and you know that this is the truth. That's exactly how they feel. You know,
100%.
And to me, I look at that and I'm like, do you realize there's like 5 major religions in the world, and you think that you just happen to be born into the one that's correct, right? Because every single person that belongs, whether it's Buddhism's technically not a religion, it's like a philosophy or a way of life. That's what I learned in Thailand. That's cool. But it's like whether you're Hindu or Buddhist or Jewish or Christian. What's the other one? Muslim. It's like they all think that everyone else is wrong. And it's like, how do you not see that, like, okay, you were born into a family that's Mormon, right? And you think that if you, let's say you were born and same body, same soul, put up for adoption, raised by a Catholic family, that you would still have been Mormon? You know what I mean? Like, you really think that it's that serious. Like, this is the truth, you know, and it's nothing against that, just for the sake of example.
For sure.
But I do think that the Mormon religion in particular does tend to be pretty devout, you know, pretty strict. So that one is the one that comes to mind. But yeah, it's just, to me, I don't understand how people can't step outside their box and realize this other person feels the exact same way I do about their religion. It's psychology.
Like,
so that's
who's
ego.
to say I'm right? It is ego.
It's ego.
Who's to say I'm right? Who's to say my spirituality and what I do is right? You know, I don't know. I'm just doing what I feel is best for myself and for people that I can help. And so I think, you know, it is like getting outside of the box. I call it zooming out. Like, zoom out. Like, look at it at a bird's eye view. Like, what really matters? Like, are you a good person? Do you do good things? Do you, you know, it could be all kinds of controversy.
Can you elaborate on how you told me that everyone has the ability to connect with spirit, and why some people are probably more in touch with that than others?
I think everyone is psychic. Like, to some level, to some degree, as humans, we were given a psychic ability to survive in the world. Everyone has intuition. We're born with it. It's just a matter of listening to it, and I think the more you can quiet your mind, the louder your intuition can get. And it's like a muscle. So the more you practice it, the more you pay attention to it, the more you teach yourself about it, the stronger it'll get. Like, it can be very subtle. Intuition isn't a loud, like, yell in your ear, like, turn right. It's like, you should turn right. And it's like, when you listen to it, it's like, oh, there was an accident if I would have went left. Or, you know, this happened. So, you know, it's interesting because I feel like intuition can also be something that somebody is scared of, but it's a tool that we're born with. So I feel like the more you use it, it can actually be very beneficial for you to use it and to just survive in the world a little bit easier.
I've noticed that there's certain things that take me out of that state of mind.
Yes.
So if I am spending a lot of time on my phone, or if I'm around people that make me step out of character a little bit, you know, make me angry, or make me, everybody has like their wounds from childhood or from relationships or whatever. Definitely. So if I'm around people that kind of reopen those for me, I'm closed off to that other stuff. I've actually felt like, I don't know how to explain it. I guess for a visual, it would be like on a low vibration. And sometimes it's hard to like pull yourself out of that. Have you noticed that there's certain things that make you feel disconnected from your intuition or from spirit?
Yeah, definitely. Depression, anxiety are really big ways that I will feel disconnected from my intuition and spirit. I noticed like in the past, whenever I've gone through a breakup, or if I'm like in like a bad relationship or a toxic relationship, whatever you want to call it, once a breakup happens, I notice like my intuition and my psychic abilities would just like skyrocket. Like I think when I'm down or like being brought down like at a lower frequency, it's harder for me to listen to my intuition. But when the blocks go away or you kind of remove the negative energy, it's like you have more space for that to come through to you. Mm-hmm. So it's also all about your frequency. We're all vibrating, like scientifically proven, like we're vibrating at a crazy speed. So that's a frequency. So if you're vibrating at a low frequency, think of like if heaven, God, spirit is up this high and we're down here, think of how much space that is in between the two. Whereas if you raise your vibration and you're vibrating at a higher frequency, it's a lot easier to receive that, that intuition, that those psychic abilities, because you're up higher. So during readings, actually, basically what I'm doing is I'm imagining myself raising my vibration. And that's because they have to come down halfway too. It's hard for them to come down super low.
Right.
So it's kind of like meeting in the middle. Like if they're up here and I'm down here, I have to raise myself and they have to lower themselves. And then once we meet, that's where the connection starts. So some people do it more naturally. Some people have an easier way of doing it. Some people do it without even noticing. And then some people, their vibration just may be a little bit lower, which can be caused, with depression or, I know using like alcohol and drugs lowers your vibration. Eating bad lowers your vibration. Like you said, like hanging around people that maybe bring out more like negative energy in yourself. So once you kind of remove those blocks, that's raising your vibration. Even dancing can raise your vibration. Music can raise your vibration.
Yeah.
So
I think probably what my concept of the purpose of being here is this, at least for me personally, I have this battle between my ego and my soul, right? So we're part human and part soul.
Yeah.
And in that book, they talk about how sometimes, like, your soul agrees a little bit more with one body over another, and it can be a really troubling life if your soul is not, like, meshing with your ego.
Right.
And I have a really big ego. And it's something that...
It's great self-awareness that you can admit it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I work on it because it's like this angry little voice in my head. It's like your inner critic.
Right.
It's loud and is harsh on you. Like, I have a really mean inner voice that I've had to, like, work on over the years. And so I've noticed that when I'm making choices out of ego or when my ego's really loud, that separates me from like my soul a little bit. I don't know how to explain it. It's like makes sense in my head, but basically...
No, that makes sense. I love that you said that your ego is loud, because like I said before, your intuition is very quiet and subtle.
Right.
So it's like when we quiet that ego and set that out, the intuition can come forward, and we're operating from our soul and not our ego.
Right. So to me, anything that feeds the ego starves the soul.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to make it seem like they're opposites, because neither one of them is going anywhere while we're here, right? Like, you are always
we
gonna have
an ego for a reason.
Yes. And you're always gonna have both, an ego and a soul. So they got to figure it out.
Right.
So it's not like they're enemies, like mortal enemies, but they have separate interests for sure. It's like a Republican and a Democrat.
Yeah.
And them trying to find a way.
Very separate purposes.
Right. And so I've noticed it when I'm in environments that are heavy on the ego, I leave feeling pretty drained.
Right.
Like if it's I worked at the club forever.
Yeah.
That is all ego.
Oh, yeah.
So much of it is ego, and it really like can suck the life out of you.
Oh, yeah.
It's all superficial. People that are all about money or being flashy, or their whole identity is about money and how much they make, and like
who looks the best, who's doing the most.
Yeah, or physical attractiveness.
Yeah.
Like, and we're human, so that part of us can be brought out by anybody. No one's immune to it. So, the most dangerous mindset that you can go into any environment with, in my opinion, is that environment's not going to impact you.
Right.
Or, oh, I'm just above this, so like I'm not going to be everything around you impacts you. So having the self-awareness to be like, maybe this, maybe this is getting to my head.
Like, I know where I'm at. I know the environment that I'm in. And I feel like that makes a lot of sense because I've become very aware of how I feel when I leave places or when I leave certain people. Like, if I'm hanging out with a friend for a few hours and I leave, like, do I feel uplifted and in a good mood? And do I have energy? Or do I feel like I want to go home and take a nap? Like, I could do nothing for the rest of the day now. Like, just paying attention, even like with certain clients, like, how do certain people make you feel? Because you're feeling their energy. Everything is energy. So if you think about a club, not that there's anything wrong with clubs. I love going to the club, every now and then. But if you think about it, like, that's so many people in one area that it's a lot of ego in one place. Yeah. So leaving a place like that, it's exhausting because it's like everyone, it's like a competition. Like, who am I going to talk to? Who can I hook up with? Who can I do this with? What are those people doing over there? More alcohol. And it's like, again, not that environment is bad, but for your soul, it's not, it's almost like,
you gotta take care of it after.
Yeah, it's like a human thing to experience. Like, your soul isn't like, oh yeah, like this club is feeding my soul. Like, it's your ego that's being fed,
Right. And I've noticed that when my ego shattered, right? So honestly, it's like when I've been at my lowest and it feels like I don't have anything left to lose at this point.
Yeah.
That's almost when it's like the clearest to me to be able to communicate or receive messages or find guidance, because it's like an ego death. It's like I realized, man, maybe I can't do this all by myself, and then you're not focused on everything else. You're just like, something doesn't sit right with me right now, and I need some help. And so I've found it the easiest to have a conversation with whatever I believe in when I'm actually hurting really bad.
Yeah. It's like you don't have the answers for anything, so you get the answers that you need for everything, almost. Right. I notice, like, when I'm very sad or depressed, that's when I'll have the most visits from my loved ones. Like, a lot of dreams, or, like, my spirit guides will come through in a dream, but it's not that I see them, but I'll have a dream about, like, a random animal, like a snake, or... like, I'll dream of, like the other night I was, like, falling asleep and I was, like, dreaming of a wasp, like, flying right to my face. And, like, I looked it up, like, what's the spiritual meaning of a wasp? And it's, like, take action, like, do this, like, start this. And, like, it made sense to me for what I'm feeling. And I feel like when I'm at the lowest, that's when it's, like, I gotta listen to something. Like, I need help. Like, I need some type of guidance. So it comes through a lot stronger.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
Shifting direction a little bit here. Have you ever faced like criticism or skepticism within the spiritual community, or like from other mediums? Because there has to be people out there that are either saying they have this gift and don't, or like trying to scam people.
Right.
Or maybe there's like even some mediums out there that are like, I'm better than you, or doubtful of you. Like, have you ran into that at all? Are you even in contact with other people that are psychic?
Yeah, I've made quite a few like psychic friends, or like friends that are also mediums. I haven't really ever ran into another medium like being weird like that, or like, I've never really run into like what would I feel like that would be like competition almost, like I'm better than you, or like you're not. Every medium is so different and every psychic is so different, and every medium is a psychic, but not every psychic is a medium. So they are kind of two different realms, even though they're similar, but not every psychic is like communicating with those who have passed away. So they are a little bit different. Personally, I have run into like a scammer at one point, like before I really understood my abilities and my gifts. Like I was at Target one time and this lady came up to me and she's like, "Oh my gosh, like you have such a bright aura. I would love to give you a reading." I think I was like 18 at the time. And I had just broken up with like my boyfriend of like 6 years, and I was like in a very vulnerable state, and I was so sad. It was literally like the day after it happened, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so weird. Like what a sign. Like maybe it's something that I should like do. And she's like, it's gonna be $20 before I start. And right away, that's a huge red flag. If a medium or psychic ever approaches you in public and has a message for you, if they ask you for money, I probably wouldn't give it to them, because I know if I have a message for someone, I'm not going to ask for money, especially in a public setting. I'm not trying to get money out of it. I'm just trying to give you a message out of like the kindness of my heart, because I have the ability to do that. So that was a huge red flag in the first place. And then we like sat at the food court at Target, and she just kind of gave me like a cookie cutter reading, like you're going to meet someone in the oil field and you're going to move to Hawaii, just like very like just very dramatic things that I was like, okay, like, and she was like, your relationship was just puppy love. It wasn't, it wasn't this, wasn't that. And like I didn't really resonate with that at the time. I was just kind of like, okay, like I felt really weird about it. So then I went about like my shopping, and in the next aisle over, I heard her say the exact same thing to like another girl, like, oh, your aura is so bright, I would love to give you a reading. And I like put on my big girl pants and I like went into the aisle and I was like, you're saying the same thing to everybody. I was like, can I please have my money back? Like I feel very uncomfortable that like you just did that to me. Mm-hmm. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, like, and gave me like my $20 back. And I was like, I gotta be on the lookout for these people. Yeah. Like, that's crazy. Like, she was not genuine. She was a scammer. And I've actually I saw her again, like, years and years later. She said the same thing to my friend, and I was like, no, like, don't listen to her. Like, she's like gosh. Negative energy. It was super weird.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not naive in the slightest to think that, like, there's scammers out there. There's people that say they're psychic and they're not. I think it's all just about just trusting whatever experiences you have with psychics and mediums, mm-hmm. And just, have an open mind, but it's okay to be like skeptical at the same time, because there are people out there that could easily say like, oh yeah, I'm psychic, and they're just simply not. They're just trying to take advantage of people that are in, vulnerable states, mm-hmm. which I don't support at all. So right. I totally get it.
Have you ever encountered a situation like that, doing your own readings, where you were giving a reading and it didn't resonate with the person that was receiving it? And how do you handle something like that?
Yeah, I have quite a few times. I like to explain to people that a reading is a 3-way communication. So it's not just me and your loved one, it's me, you, and your loved one. Like, we're all 3 connected, or however many people are receiving the reading. It's a connection for everyone involved. So if a client comes in and they're very shut down, just, this isn't going to be true, this doesn't make sense to me, I'm not open to hearing anything, it's actually a lot harder for me to read them. So I always tell people, like, just have an open mind, sit back, take a deep breath, just like enjoy this, I'm just going to, just give me yes or no, that's all you have to do. So there have been situations where people will come in and like, I'm just like not really like getting much. I'm just like, does this make sense to you? And they're like, no. And it's just like, no. Everything's a no that's coming through for them. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, not everything has to be a yes, but, and also like, it could just make sense later. Like, I've had people tell me no on certain things, and then like, it'll click later, like a year later, like something will happen and they're like, oh, that's what she meant by that. So I always trust that a no is okay. But at the same time, like, I've told people, like, I don't think that this service is right for you. So I'm going to stop here. I'm not going to charge you for today. Like, we'll just kind of, maybe you can come back another time when you feel like you need something, but, you know, for today, I don't really feel like I'm going to give you what you need, and I don't want to go like any further. And I also trust that because I always set an intention and a prayer that I'm only receiving what's in the best and highest good, maybe what that person is coming in with is not in my best and highest good, and that's why I'm not picking up on it. So I'm like, that's totally okay. Like, I'm not going to force something to come out or tell you what you want to hear just because you came and made an appointment and you want a reading. A reading isn't for everybody. Not everyone is, you know, is meant to see a medium in their lifetime, you know? So I try not to force it. If that happens, I try not to take it personal. It does kind of feel like it kind of sucks because it's like, oh, like, you know, I know what I'm capable of, but I'm not able to give that to this person. So they might think they wasted their time here, or, you know, I'm, you know, not real, or, you know, whatever the case may be. That's, again, that's my ego getting in the way of like, oh, like, what are they thinking about it? But I know that, like, I would rather tell someone and be honest and say, like, you know, I don't think I'm able to give you what you need. So, you know, maybe we can schedule this another time, or you can schedule with another psychic and maybe you'll get what you need. But I don't think that I'm going to be able to give that to you. So I'd rather do that than sit there and be like, oh, you know, make something up. Like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, like that lady in Target.
Yeah, exactly.
The man in the oil field.
Yeah.
Have you, or like what would you say to someone who remains skeptical or doubtful about the existence of the spirit world and or your ability to connect with it?
I guess it would just depend on, like, if they had questions. Like, I'd be open to, like, answering any questions they have. But if they're just like, I don't believe in it, I'm never gonna believe in it, you know, that's just my view, I can respect that. Like, there's not really much to say. I always say to myself and to other people, like, I'm never gonna try to convince anybody that what I believe in is right or true. It really just comes down to you having your own experience with it. I have given, like, skeptical people readings. Like, my twin brother, actually, he's probably the most skeptical person that you could probably ever meet in your entire life. Like, just very logical, very, like, straightforward thinking. Like, if there's not proof right in front of him, he, you know, it's just not for him. So our whole life, it was kind of like that. I always felt like he didn't really believe me, or, like, you know, he never would have been, like, supportive of what I'm doing. And then I gave him a reading. He was like, oh, like, let's just see what this is about. Like, I'll, you know, so I gave him a reading. And it's, like, kind of cute now. He, like, tells all of his friends, like, oh, like, Cynthia has, like, magical powers. Like, Cynthia, like, tell them what you do. Like, explain to them how you do it. And, like, I've even had, like, his friends separately tell me that, like, he talks about it with people that, like, don't even know me or, like, have ever heard of me, or, like, just people that he comes across. Like, he talks about it. So I feel like that means a lot to me because I changed his mind without trying. He just had his own experience with me, and that is what opened his mind. So I would hope for that for someone who is skeptical. Like, if anything, I hope that they would have a cool experience to, like, know that their loved one is still around them, especially if it's someone they were super close to. But it's really up to them to open up to that. It's like, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make them drink it. I can give you a reading, but if you don't want to believe it, or if you don't want it to be helpful to you, then it's not going to be. So that just isn't for you, and that's okay. But yeah.
Well, that's the advice I give anyone who is closed-minded about anything, is maybe you don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. If you get a reading and it's like, that made no sense to me, like, this is why I don't believe in it, then that's, you know, I can respect that. But again, like, just be open and, you know, just see what happens.
Yeah.
Nothing bad will happen.
Right.
It'll be okay.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add that I didn't already cover? Or any parting words?
I don't think so. Just, I wanted to thank you for, like, the opportunity. I think what you do is awesome. And, I really look up to, like, just what you're doing with the podcast, and just, like, as a person in general, I think you're a very, like, unique person. And, I think that you're going to do a lot of amazing things, kind of
Thank
like what
you.
we talked about in your reading.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time and your
Of
willingness
course.
to discuss this with me. I hope that your journey as a medium and the insights you've shared today have at least, opened some people's mind
Yeah.
to the idea, maybe more than they were before.
Yeah.
If you guys would like to learn more about Cynthia or have any more questions or want to book a reading, I will have her contact info and her website available on most of my social media platforms. What is the name of your website now, just so I can say it verbally in case people are listening and not watching?
Okay, it's divineloveandlight.com.
Okay, perfect. And I'll have a link to it available as well. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you in 2 weeks to talk more elephants.